Hey everyone, I'm Veronica. Thanks so much for being with me today. I have a special guest. This is part 2 of our collaboration. This is Amy Westmoreland. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. Yay!
Thank you for having me. I'm very delighted to be here.
So today we're talking about the stories we tell and how important they are in terms of manifesting, in terms of changing your situation, especially with your specific person, and how you can actually change the story of what they think about you, and you can actually enter that love relationship that you've been trying so hard to manifest and to attain in your life, that it can actually be yours. So on the last video we told a story of my sort of success and failure, and to sort of learn from that. And now we're going to be continuing with a story from Amy's past, and she's going to be sharing that with us, and hopefully you all can learn from that too, and you can help get success where we were never able to. Then you can kind of learn from our mistakes. So yeah.
Thank you. So I had a very similar experience when I was first really getting the hang of the law of attraction. So I kind of knew how to manifest, but I didn't have the complete picture yet. So of course I'm like, I had dated this guy twice, and the first time I didn't know about the law of attraction really. It was in high school, and then the second time I was a little bit older, after college, and he looked me back up, and so he was always very emotionally closed off and distant from me, and he would hold me at arm's length. And I kept this story going all the time. I remember I would just keep thinking it as I was laying in bed. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't care about me. He just doesn't care about me.
It was like over and over again, like a broken record.
My unfortunate mantra.
Yeah, exactly. Before you're aware that, wow, this is having an effect on my life.
Yeah. So as I mentioned just briefly in the other video, he did not fit the personality of any other guy I'd ever dated. So I did not have any sort of awareness that it was coming from my story. I thought, like, this is how he comes. He's prepackaged. This is his personality. I just have to endure and overcome it. So I made no effort to change my internal story. But I did practice doing some visualizing and getting into having certain experiences with him, which actually worked. Mm-hmm. So it would be, I would send him love. Mm-hmm. I write in a book to send him love, and it was unconditional love. And he would then a few days later behave like I wanted him to behave. Yeah. And it was always very short-lived. And not only when he stopped being nice, mm-hmm. he would then sort of verbally say, like, I don't know why I was being nice. I take it back.
Oh, God. That's so terrible. We're laughing, but you were like crushed at the time.
We're laughing because we get it now, but yeah, it was rough. Oh. It was really rough at the time.
Oh God.
Like I remember once he told me he loved me, and I was so excited, and then the next day he's like, I just didn't mean that.
Oh God, it's terrible. Oh, but I've been there. I can totally relate.
Oh. So I had some success with the techniques and the visualizations I was doing, but it was not enough to make a dent in this negative story I had constantly churning. Yeah. I thought very negative thoughts about him. I felt very justified in it. I felt like there was no reason for me to change. And it wasn't until years later that I looked back and I was like, oh, all that love I sent him, it wasn't unconditional. I sent it to change him externally, which is the whole definition of conditional. And it would work temporarily, but it never changed the external, because I was trying to change the mirror reflection instead of changing me inside.
Right. Exactly. Which most people do. I mean, when you don't really understand this fully, like that's what you reach for. That's what you think is the right thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I even read a dating book. It was called Why Men Love Bitches at the time.
Oh God.
And I did some of the techniques in there, and they would work. But they were, again, very temporary, because I would just momentarily think something different for a few days and it would work. But ultimately, we broke up, and he came back 4 or 5 months later, and he wanted to get back together. And I had done some soul searching in the meantime, and I decided, because I didn't know how to change it, that I was just going to move on. And I was very comfortable with that. So we got together, and he just started off strong, like, oh, I really love you, and I've always loved you. And I'm like, where was all of this when we were dating?
Yeah.
But he slid back in the middle of the conversation, and his other ex-girlfriend showed up at the door and like had a freak out in the middle of our conversation. And
that's crazy.
And I just sat there and I'm like, this is so dramatic. Like, I just can't do this. And I walked away and I've never seen or talked to him since. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, I never took responsibility for my inner world.
Yeah.
I made it all about him. He has to change.
Yeah, all about him. It was always all about the other person. That's like a mistake that so many people make because they're not looking within. They're thinking it has to be about this person.
Yeah. And, you know, I didn't even realize I was playing the victim role the whole
Yeah.
time. And so, you know, I came up with some ways from that experience of how to help other people, because that really taught me what just doesn't work ever.
Right. Exactly.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the three things that I like to tell people is, number one, you got to take responsibility for your inner world.
Yes. That responsibility is like so key. Like you have to really look within. Like it is all about you. You cannot you know, blame other, you know, exterior forces. You have to, it all comes from within. And that is like that light bulb realization. When you get that, like you can transform your world, like take on pretty much anything. But yeah,
Right.
that's so huge.
Yeah, and look, it's not easy. It's not easy. I couldn't do it when I was with him because of the way that I thought the external was real and the internal was irrelevant.
Right. Irrelevant. That's perfect way of thinking about it.
So, you know, when you take responsibility, do so from a place of forgiving yourself, not a place of blaming and judging yourself.
Yeah, you have to be your own best friend. Like you have to be an inner support system for yourself. You can't be this blaming force of like hating the choices that you made. You have to come to peace. You know, that's who I was then. I didn't know any better. Let's move ahead to a place where I can actually get more, get better.
Yeah, I didn't know any better. I wasn't aware of what I was doing.
Right.
I made the best choices I had available at the time.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to sort of let yourself off the hook without going too much pressure. So then the second thing I tell people is, if you decide that you want to change the scenario with them, which is totally possible. That's what manifesting is all about.
Yeah, it is possible. Any situation, any obstacle.
Yeah. Then intend to change your story, like to set the intention, because you're not necessarily going to change it the first moment you realize that you should change it.
No, there's always that time delay. You have to stick with it. You have to persist in it. You have to have it become truth to you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. And repeating it to yourself, repeating the news story, which you have to figure out what that's going to be, is what causes it to sink into your subconscious and actually start to believe it.
Forming a new habit. I mean, if you decide to like, you know, pick up a language, like I want to learn Italian, like it's not going to happen in one session, you know?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah. It's like learning a language. Like you intend to do it, but you don't know the language yet.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I tell people is start very, very gently at first, because you're going to come up with a lot of resistance. You're changing a story very gently, imagining the desired outcome, and start telling yourself things about the person that are currently not true. And they will become true. And this is hard because people are so afraid to do this. They're like, oh, well, like for me, example, if I had been like, he's emotionally closed off, I could have said, he's emotionally warm and open.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I could have said. I never thought that.
Yeah, no, I know. You look back on these experiences, you realize how the thing you wanted, you weren't actually believing. Like you may have wanted it, but you weren't telling that as part of your life story. So it couldn't appear. Like wanting something and telling it as, you know, your future events they're two totally different things.
Yeah. And so, you know, as we're both coaches, we talk to a lot of people from different stories and stuff in their love life. And I'll often hear people be like, well, I don't understand why I'm not getting what I want. You know, I think about what I want all the time. And then within about a 5-minute investigation, it's like, no, they think they're thinking about what they want, but they're spending the majority of time thinking, he doesn't want me. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't want to commit. She's like this. She's like that, whatever.
Well, that's a really big one that I hear. They're too stubborn to want to be with me again.
They can't change their mind.
Mm-hmm. That once they break up with someone, they never look back. You know, I hear that assumption all the time. And it's like, if you're playing that out as your story, then how on earth, you know, why can't you instead play out in the story as maybe, you know, they've never looked back, but you're the exception. You know, this idea that I'm the exception and they're going to need me. You know, why isn't that part of your story? If that's literally what you want this person, you have to do the work. Like you can't expect it to be done for you. You can't expect it to magically change. It's not going to.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And it takes work. and it's always worth it, in my
Oh,
opinion.
no, absolutely. Like the work can be fun. Like you know this is going to bring about success.
Yeah,
So why are you doing it like drudgingly? Like it's fun. Like wow, I have power within me. That is amazing. Like I can shape this relationship. I mean, you can shape pretty much any relationship. Family, friends,
absolutely.
anything in your world.
And actually, that's a good thing that you brought up. If you have someone you're not that resistant to as a family or a friend or like a coworker, you could practice with them because
Yes,
you'll see how it works way
yeah.
faster, and then you'll feel more encouraged to do it with your
Yes,
specific
that's
person.
a great idea. Sort of like, yeah, like a coworker or something, just somebody that you want maybe to treat you a little bit different. And there isn't much resistance. And if it's not love connected, like it is usually easier to do as a practice. And then you can really build up your confidence because you need confidence to really follow through on this and to really see that, you know what, my love relationship can be anything. I can get that specific person. It was never even a big deal. It was just the beliefs that I was holding on to myself, those stories, those pesky stories. I'm the author and I was writing a terrible story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also find too that when you're telling your story, it's changing your inner world. So make sure that you're not trying to change your external
Yeah.
world. It will automatically
Yeah.
change. Because
Like,
so some people,
yeah.
yeah, so people learn this and they're still like they do it for 2 or 3 days and then they're like checking the external world. It's
Yeah.
like it's okay to do that, but it's changing you. You have to be able to think differently. It's like think of it this way: you want to be emotionally healthy in your own mind.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And I feel like, if there's chaos in your outer world, fix the chaos within you. And by default, it just fixes. Like, you don't have to know how it's going to fix. You don't have to know the steps to this specific person. Like, how on earth is this? I'm going to get, from point A to point B.
Right.
You don't have to know that. All you have to do is fix all of these obstacles that are existing within you. Like, you don't need to know the specific obstacles, but this feeling of things being closed off or blocked off to you or, restricted, like this idea that they hate me. Like you fix that and suddenly they gravitate towards you. I mean, it's
They
brilliant.
do.
I
Yeah,
have
they
seen
do.
it so many times in my life, even when I didn't know what I was doing, like literally night and day. It's because it's in you. If you change it within you, it has to change.
Yeah, and even if you don't understand that part, like we do, we understand that through experience, and you struggle to like really believe it. Do it anyway. You'll
Yeah,
prove it to yourself.
exactly. What
You
have you
don't.
got to lose? You know?
Yeah, you have nothing to lose. Just do it anyway. Prove it to yourself, and then
Yeah,
you'll be like, "Who cares how it works? It works."
right. Exactly. As long as it works, it's all that matters. And
Right.
I mean, your life is worth it. You're worth it. Like, care about yourself enough to live a better life, whether it's, in your love relationship, your money, your career, pretty much anything, your health. Like, love yourself enough and love the experience of life enough to say, I'm going to get out of this rut that I'm in. And I'm going to try something new and I'm going to prove it to myself that I can live better and have more.
Yeah, because again, like you said, you can use it for any topic. That's how I changed my money around.
Yeah, me too.
I turned my inner world
Yeah,
different stories about my money, and I realized I didn't like myself about my money. I didn't like how I spent money, and so I was like, well, I can't hold this idea. I don't like myself.
right.
So I started to like myself, and I did a couple other things as well, but it totally transformed my money about 6 years ago, and it's just
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's
been a permanent change.
yeah, exactly. For me too. I mean, I was living in my grandmother's basement that flooded, you know, it was horrible. Now I, bought my dream house. So, it's you can change. You can change. And I mean, it's not just about changing tangible things, it's about changing love relationships too. And I think that's something that people really get tripped up upon because they think that the other person's idea of them is something they have no control over
Right.
whatsoever. But
You do have
absolute.
yeah, absolute. You're sovereign in your own reality. And
Yeah,
and that's hard to get. You don't people
right.
don't have to believe that. Just
Just try
it'll
it.
prove itself.
Exactly. Try it, you'll learn from experience, and then you'll be like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, if the only ex that I think would ever watch my videos is probably this one. So if he's watching,
I
I
know, I know. I
apologize.
so, I
I
wonder,
so apologize for how I thought about you.
that's really funny. I was thinking the same thing.
He's like the only one I think that would like
I
be
know.
around and look to see what I'm up to.
All right. Well, Well, we probably should wrap up, but this was super fun, and I hope we can do collaborations in the future again. And yeah, this is Amy Westmoreland. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, and thank you for having me on yours. And I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, I hope everyone has a lovely day. Reach all your dreams. Become inspired. I hope this will help you get lots of success. Yep. And thanks so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.